how to get back to being guided. You know that awesome feeling when it feels you're on course, you're firing at all cylinders, and there's something deeper underneath driving you? How to get back there. Hello, I'm Frank the Future, and welcome to the Vanguard of Light, where we're talk about how to stay on your spiritual A game, take it to the next level. And we have got a good one today. It's about getting back to feeling guided. And this is an interesting one because I was having this happen today. Been kind of doing a lot of city stuff. Don't necessarily like being in the city, but I'm here helping out my mom. We actually went on a vacation, had a little incident with a knee injury, so we came back. So it's been doing a little more city stuff than I expected, and it's also, kind of gives me a little bit of a swirled up, right? So I'm kind of feeling not guided, right? It's like, I need to reconnect. I need to, get back on my A game. And I was like, think what video to do. And I was like, well, let's do one about getting back guided. So I was like breaking it down. I was thinking like, okay, what's happening here? And then really start thinking of like that inner sense of want to get guided, like wanting to be back on point. That is guidance. Like realizing like, oh, wait a second, I am being guided. I'm not feeling like the hypnosis and just, oh, let's follow along, do this. But I kept getting nudges of like, get back into nature, get back into action, get back. And it's like, wait a second, that's guidance. It's not that flow where it's like you're on the adventure and it's like, oh yeah, and this is happening, pop, pop, pop. It was more like kind of like that disjointed where I got a vibe, didn't listen to it, and it didn't work out in the way I wish the vibe would have sorted out. And I kind of, a bunch of those, stop, go. But realizing that's a guidance though. That's still a guidance, and just that wanting to get back to guidance. That's guidance. And realizing like, oh, wait a second. So if you're feeling that like, oh man, I want to be guided, that's a level of guidance coming in, right? So that's a level of guidance coming in. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling that, but it's not the flow. So what's happening there? So I was breaking it down and realizing there's 3 interplays that could possibly going on for you. One of them is to look, where are you possibly in resistance? Where is there something that it's pretty much on your path, you're committed to doing, but you're in resistance to it? If like something you're putting off, you think it's going to be worse than possibly it is. It's just like, what is that? I don't want. And it's kind of like this mind noise, right? And think of like, what could those possibly think? So it could be one of those that's kind of grinding on you of like there's some resistance of something you want to do, possibly you don't want to do. So it's diving deeper. And I'm going to do a video probably tomorrow or next day on like that, of like how you dig into that. But just keep that in your mind of like, I want to be guided again. Possibly what are the resistances that I have that, it's like it'll move my life forward, but I'm not really looking forward to them. Or they're kind of grinding on me. I think about them like, oh yeah, I got to do that. Yeah, I got to do that, right? So we're going to get clear on those ones. So the next one is kind of where I just blanked on it. Ooh, that goes to my 3rd one. So I'm going to jump to the 3rd one, then we'll jump back to the 2nd one because I know it'll come back. The 3rd one is there's an interplay of darkness, so to speak. And just realizing, it's kind of because you're wanting to be guided, you're picking up messages, but it's kind of like a stop. So there is an interference. And I call it like the level of darkness, level of that, negative voice in your head. And just realize, like the 3rd part is realizing there's an interplay going, but don't engage it. Don't think, okay, where's my guidance? Because it's kind of got you a little bit off track, right? And getting onto it while off track, while not on point, and diving into it will probably pull you more off track. So it's just more of just keeping that in your back pocket of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm getting back on path, right? Because your first part, you're going to start looking at what are some of the things that, I'm resisting doing, right? And I'm like, I kind of don't want to do, but I know I need to do it. And the second one, which is come back now, because I kind of recognized that, hey, there's probably a dark force interplaying, right? And I didn't stop, didn't give up. It's just like, okay, recognize there's probably some darkness. There's probably some kind of malevolent energy. We're not addressing it. We're not facing it. We're not letting it pull us off course. We're just recognizing, okay, it's probably there. It'll disrupt. And so the second thing, which it feels like it's jumped away again, because it's right there. But it's really, say there's a task that you have, or a course or thing, like a mission you're on, right? You're currently on it, and it's a big, and you could have just 1 or 2 of these things, and it's like a big thing you're going after, right? And it was a big challenge, but now it's actually not as hard as it used to be, right? And it still has like to complete. You haven't completed it yet, but when you first started it, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to possibly do this, right? But now that you're got it going a bit, because a lot of times it's that resistance before you get going that feels so overwhelming, but once you're down the path, it starts getting easier and easier. But now it's almost like it's too easy, but it might feel like it's overwhelming of like, oh, I've got to finish all that. But most likely, just something to check, something to play with, is like, how do you amp that up? Either how do you add something new with that, or how do you, and it could be some of these things, those first ones that you're kind of resistant, thinking like, oh, I don't have enough energy because I'm doing this big project, but realizing that that big project might have moved to where it's not so overwhelming. It's not so challenging. But you have like that past memory of like, oh my gosh, how am I possibly going to be able to do this, right? But once you got going, you kind of realized, oh, I'm getting a stride, I'm going through it, now it's not overwhelming. Now it's not like, oh my gosh, this is this big thing, which can actually cause a dip, because you're so geared up to like battle this, but yet it's dipped. It's not as hard. So it's about adding to of like, it kind of becomes a drag of like, I gotta do another one. So it's like, okay, how do you do 1, 2, or 3? How do you add back on to get back onto your A game? Because it is no longer a challenge enough to get you to your A game. So it's kind of like realizing, I'm like, okay, I want to get guided again, but I got that stop start. Okay, what are some things I'm avoiding? Because that's going to just negative drain, and it's also a lie, because it's probably most likely in your head why you're avoiding it, because it's harder than it is. You know, it seems like it's harder than it really is. So it's about, okay, I'm gonna go through, start addressing those. And the next one is like, do you have projects or what's on your plate, right? Might have felt like it was full or over full, but it might have actually dipped down now to where it's showing up like you're trying to generate it and create it as overwhelming, but realize, wait a second, it's actually not as challenging as it was. Which then turns into a grind. But we don't want it to be a grind. We want it to be a challenge. We want it to be enthusiasm. You know, so you're like, yeah, I'm going after it. I'm pushing myself. Because if you're just going through it and it's no longer that challenge, it does become a grind. You're just grinding it out. And you don't want to introduce grind energy into your dream. You want to actually raise it up a bit to where now it becomes enthusiasm, and you're like, oh man, I got to go after this. And then thirdly is that piece of a malevolence, of a dark energy, of a negative voice. We're not directly addressing it, but we're just noticing it, because we're going to wait till we get to our game, get back on our A game, then we can come back and be like, okay, you know, we're fortified now. Okay, what was that voice? How do I refute it? Right now, we're just going to not pay attention to it versus remove it, because it's kind of got a little, it might got it in on us, right? So we don't want to fully address it then. We want to be like, we're going to ignore it while fully addressing our dreams. And then when we come back, we can be like, okay, pop it out of there, because we won't spend too much time on that. But just notice that, okay, there could be a dark force in here too. And not feel like, oh, I'm not being guided. Like, no, I am getting guided, right? I'm going on the right path. I might have some stumbles and bumps, but that's probably just the dark force trying to trip me up. But the more I stay on my path, the more I address those things that I maybe don't want to do, but are important for me to do, or I address that big goal I'm going after, and, you know, it's time to raise it up a bit. It's not as overwhelming as when you started, and you can have it's dipped down to where it's not as much as a challenge. And then it becomes a grind. It's like, oh no, let's turn it up. Let's make it a little bit harder. Let's add a little bit to it, whether it's those things we didn't want to do, but somehow, how do we turn it up a bit? Because we're getting more capacity. So realize like, oh wait, we just increased our capacity. And there's possible dark force that's interfering with that, but that we are being guided. Just the desire to be guided is a level of guidance. So hopefully that helped. I'm going to make 3 other videos of what to do with those things you don't want to do, and kind of get really addressing those. And then also, like, do you have a big goal that kind of got easier because you actually progressed and got better, and how to boost that up? And then a little bit on like ignoring the dark forces, not engaging them, because at this point in time, when you're in that kind of re-getting back guided, it's more of ignoring, staying on getting back dialed in, so that when you go and address dark forces, you pull them out right away. You don't get stuck down the rabbit hole. So hopefully that helped. And until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.